So we are going to go over kind of where Tao stands at ninth because we've heard Tao's not that great, but Joe Fonts last week went 5-0 in the bunker here. And how'd you do in the tournament?
In the tournament, I scored 217 points. I did not take the win, but I think the highest score in the tournament was 284 or something crazy like that.
So Maverick's going to go over his army real quick, and then a couple of questions. Did you want to share it out to your Tao group, the live video, real quick?
I'll share it after.
Perfect.
Afterwards.
Okay.
Yep.
Take it away, Maverick.
Okay. So one of the questions that has been asked is, do I think that people are condemning Tau in 9th edition, and why? So I think that a lot of people are so used to playing, triple tides and 30, 40 drones that it's really hard for people to move away from that. And with 9th edition, it definitely is not geared for Tau. And so you just have to adapt. Like, I think that the whole game, no matter what army you're using or anything, it's like you can't play the way you're playing in 8th. They changed the game a lot, and so you have to change the way you're playing. You can't play, like you're in 8th edition when we're in 9th. When, different rule, we have different rules, and the main point of the game is to try to get objective markers and to stay on them and all of that. So you definitely have to adopt your game. Another question that I keep getting asked is what basically list do I use? I want to start off though by saying that it doesn't matter what list you have. Like, always try to find the funnest list that you like, because if you don't have fun with your list and you don't like the models you're bringing, then you're not going to do well. And there isn't no one list to solve all problems. Definitely you can adopt your list. I generally try to stick to the same list. I change a few things every couple of games that I think that would improve it. But most of all, I picked a couple of models that I really, really love to play with, and I try to build a list around that. The rest of it, I try to build on mobility and firepower. In 9th edition, not being very durable, we need a lot of mobility and we need a lot of firepower. I know a lot of people now in 9th are using broadsides. I choose not to use broadsides just because there's zero mobility in broadsides at all. So some of the questions. So onto the list. The reason I take what I'm taking is everything has a purpose, and everything that I do is to get points. So if something isn't there to help me get points, then there's no point for it. So the first thing that I built my list around is I wanted to use the Riptide. I love the prototype ion gun, which is this guy right here, and I love the burst cannon. So I definitely wanted 2 Riptides in my list. Another thing that I really loved was the Ghost Kill. The Ghost Kill he's amazing, especially when you have the prototype fusion and then 2 fusions on top. When I build my list, so I picked what I love. Oh, and I also love the stealth team. So I wanted to use stealth, 2 Riptides, and the Ghost Kill. I wish I could use more of the stealth, but it's just not feasible to play with more in this edition, because everything in the list has a purpose, and you can't really take anything out of the list without making like a big change. So when you're making your list, you definitely want to go, what objectives, secondaries are you going for, and what models can you use to help you getting those secondaries. So to start off with secondaries first, secondaries, Tower in a horrible spot for secondaries. We do not have good secondaries that we could get. It's very hard for us to get them. We only have a few objective secure models, and our infantry is like paper. As soon as something even looks its way, they just wither away. Objectives for me or secondaries for me that I always take is While We Stand We Fight. These are going to be my 2 While We Stand We Fights. Once they're Nova charged, they're a 3-up invul, so it's really hard to get rid of them. And then we have the Ghost Kill. I do forward deploy him, and I do play him pretty aggressively, I don't plan on him living every game, but for the most part, I want to say he lives through most games. One big thing that I was realizing that I was doing wrong is before getting to the list that I had now is I didn't have enough marker lights. For them to really do their job properly, I needed marker lights. So that's where I came in with adding the tetras. So because of that, every turn, instead of spending CP on marker lights and making sure, you know, the 1 CP to get D3 or 1 additional marker light, I got them. And by having them, I get to use my CP to making sure I keep these guys alive. So whenever I need to heal one of them, you know, spend the 2 CP and get D3 wounds back. Him being -1 and him taking the most wounds, I'm able to, you know, every turn. On my turn, I get to do it. On your opponent's turn, you can also heal them too at the beginning of their turn. So don't forget, as soon as your turn's over with and it's their turn, you have to spend that CP to get him and keep him in his top bracket. Once you start killing your opponent's army, you don't have to worry about doing it so much. But that's one way to keep them alive. -1 to hit. He has a shield generator. So 4-up invul. They get their 3-up with the Nova. While we stand, we fight. Second one that I like to pick is engage on all fronts. If you have a mobile army, engage on all fronts is super, super, super easy. So for engage on all fronts, usually I have 1 unit of 2 Remoras and then 1 unit of 1. Usually I run 2 units of 2, but I dropped one of them so I could test out more tetras. So this next game, I did change it just a little bit. I changed some of the drones and I added a tetra and dropped one of them. So usually it's 2 and 2. And at the very beginning of the game, I'm starting both of, you know, I fly both of them up because they can move up to 30 inches. And I start them in the corners that I don't deploy on. So that's going to be another one. Every turn, you know, they're going to live 2-3 turns. If your opponent, you know, doesn't use them to try to get rid of them and put everything into them, which usually they're not going to want to, unless they have, you know, psychic, and they always try to use psychic to take them down since they're -1 to hit and they have 5 wounds and toughness 5. So them, as soon as they are dead though, by the time that happens, we have 18-inch movement with these guys. And my stealth team, who usually runs, so 2 different stealth teams, so this is one, usually runs with the ghost kill, and they're usually in one corner. So as soon as the Remoras are dead, I only got one other corner that I have to worry about. So every turn, you should be getting engaged on all fronts, which I do. Every single turn, I think. Since I started doing it this way, there's only been one game where I got 2 points instead of the 3 points on one of the rounds, but every time I'm maxing that. The third one, it's really hard for Tau to get the other secondaries that come with the actual mission. So I hardly ever, never will pick those. Generally, I'll pick scramblers. Yes, you're giving up 5 points, but you know, being a bottom tier army, you kind of have to give up that 5 points if you really want to dominate. I mean, you know, doing the secondaries that I do, I feel that they really keep my points where they need to be. And, you know, not necessarily maxing at 100, but always 85 to 95 in most games. But for secondaries, so I use 2 of the breachers to basically screen my backfield, and then I use 2 breachers inside of the devilfish. The devilfish is advancing turn 1, 2, sometimes even 3. The point of them is to get the breachers to the enemy's deployment zone to set off the 3rd marker. The 2nd marker I'm always placing, or that's one marker. The mid board marker I'm always placing turn 1 with one of the stealth teams. They don't need to shoot right away, so I use the stealth team for the mid board. I use, you know, the screening models for the backboard. Once I'm in their deployment zone and I do screen, they are there to try to capture the backfield objectives. Usually only one will jump out to do that for the secondary, and then the other one will stay in the transport, and I'll, you know, rush it over to try to get one of the objectives from from my opponent. Whether it's I jump out, I stop them for one turn from getting their points. Most of the time I don't score with them, but I'm stopping my opponent from getting theirs with them since they are objective secure. These I don't really use the deployment, the decoys, or not decoys. I can't even remember the name of them right now. Anyways, I use these as my scramblers every time I drop a scrambler, just so that me and my opponent can remember where I did it at. These come with the stealth teams. I just drop that wherever I deployed it at, so that we make sure we know, that we get all three of them done. Another question that was asked: what stratagems I use? Pretty much all of the Farsight ones. If you have the Psychic Awakening book, you're gonna want to be using those, especially the Firestorm one for the Remoras. It sucks when you spend all that CP and it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. But most cases, if your enemy, stays blobbed together, drop the Remoras next to them, and each one of them you're going to be doing D3 mortal wounds. Or it's not D3 mortal wounds. What is it? It's a mortal wound per 4 that you roll.
Real quick, Joe Funk.
Yeah.
What is that paper you're looking at there?
So, pretty much what I do for my stratagems and for everything that I want to do is, especially when I go to a tournament, I write everything out that I do. So starting off, it'll be automated repair system. So every turn I'm remembering automated repair system to make sure I'm healing these guys. And then command phase, I'm going to Kion or Monka, and then I add my victory points, and then I gain a CP. But then it's like, what stratagems do I need to use in the command phase, and I have those wrote down. And then I have movement phase, declare Nova for them, and then do I want to spend the CP for the breached Nova charge, and so whatever stratagems I need to do a movement are right there. And then I have shooting, and then what I need to do in shooting, and then the CP or the stratagems that I use. So every phase, if you have certain stratagems that you use, you should have a list and have it all separated, so that you don't have to flip through your cards, you don't have to look through the book. It's like, oh, we're in the movement phase, what stratagems do I need to use? You look at your book and then you go back to it, especially if you're doing tournaments, because in tournaments you're cut on time. You gotta finish. And so always make sure you bring a list with you. Once you get in 3, 4, 5 games using the list, you start to memorize it all, and you don't have to constantly look at it. But if you ever have a brain fart, which I normally will in a tournament by the time I get to my third game, as soon as I'm in my third game, it's just I always go to Reno. It's like a 3-hour drive, so it's like 3-hour drive there in the morning. Usually I don't go to bed on time because I'm thinking about the tournament, so it's like 3 hours of sleep, 3-hour drive. And then once I'm in the tournament, first 2 games I'm always doing good. Third game, it's like my mind is just done, and so it's really hard for me to remember things in the third match. So that is when this really comes into place. We don't really have a time to go over every stratagem. If you guys would like that answer, though, I could go over the stratagems maybe in the comment section if you guys want to know that.
Or we could do another video later on.
Or we could do another video.
In-depth deep dive.
Yeah. What else do we have? A stratagem. What strategy do you use for different armies? For the most part, this is the list, and I barely make any changes to it. I'll make little tweaks, like I was telling you guys about, where I dropped the Remora. I changed some of the drones. I actually added another unit of drones. And the purpose for that is I don't want to tailor my list every time I play to go against whoever I'm going against. When you go to a tournament, you can't change your list after every game. So I try to play only with one list in particular, to make sure that, one, I'm efficient with that list, and then two, it's not only a good list against heavy. It's not only a good list against infantry. My strategy normally is, with this guy, we're taking out anything that can get to your side of the board quick. You want to take out, because you definitely don't want these guys to get locked up in combat. So as soon as the game starts, I'm trying to shoot either one of two things. either whatever moves really fast for them or whatever can actually shoot at long range and take out my big things. So always do target priority. It's really, really, really crucial that you do target priority. Don't shoot at things that you know you're not going to kill. Example, I never played against Morty. I wanted to play I played a game against him, and I shot at him one turn, and then I'll never do it again. Unless everything else is dead, I'll never shoot at Morty again. And there's things like that you don't want to waste your firepower, because instead of shooting as much as I shot into Morty, I probably could have wiped 2 squads that turn. So target priority. Shoot at what you can kill and keep shooting at it until you kill it. If you don't kill it with whatever unit you're shooting at, pick another unit and shoot at it. Another thing in 9th is you want to use things that do a lot of damage. So we have, ion, burst cannon, fusion. 2 fusions on these guys. That's a majority of my firepower. But we're running short on time. If you guys want me to go over it more in depth and tell you exactly how I play each round and all of that, since I do have a pretty decent win-loss ratio, I'd say I'd probably win a whole lot more than I lose, over a 50%. I would say probably even over like a 70-75% win ratio. So if you guys would like to go more in depth into the list and what I do and how I use everything, just go ahead, comment below, and
we're going to do one more thing, Maverick, real quick here. We're going to do one more quick thing here. So we're going to go over to the board here, because we're going to have the Maverick versus Mr. Nice Guy tonight, and he's more than accommodating to help with some stuff. So we've got the board set up here. We already rolled up the mission, and what mission did we roll up there?
Scorched Earth.
We rolled up Scorched Earth. So what we're going to do here is we're going to kind of go over with Maverick his idea when he looks at a board. When he looks at because he's taking on Custodes, and we're a pretty friendly group here. So I'm going to switch over to this dual feed here, and why don't you guys go ahead and discuss what you're calling the terrain, and Maverick, kind of go over what you're thinking when you look at a map when you first see it, when you walk up to help players.
Okay, so first of all, you always want to play terrain into your favor. Even though 9th wasn't nice to us this edition, if you use the terrain the way that it's meant to be played, Tau becomes a pretty strong army. For the most part, if you're shooting at my Riptide, you're taking this side of the board. I'm always starting behind cover, or obscure, starting behind obscure. If you do not get turn 1, you do not want your guys to get shot at. You want them to have as least amount of shots as possible. If you get turn 1 and you move out, you want to stay far enough range that they cannot at all charge you on the first turn, unless they're white scars. They're probably going to be able to charge you first turn. But in that case, you always try to use the woods to your advantage. So on a board like this, I would probably start a Riptide over here and one over here, just depending on how my opponent placed. If he placed heavy on one side, then I'll probably go Riptide in the middle. But if he evenly dispersed, I'll probably do one Riptide on each side. And then when they come out, the Riptides are touching the woods. If he shoots anything at me, he's taking a -1 to hit. It really, really helps for your Riptides. Riptides being -1 to hit, 3 up save. The other army is going to struggle to kill them. Also, I run 2 drones with 2 squads of fire or breachers that as soon as they're deployed, they do not stay with the breachers. One goes to one Riptide and the other 2 go to the other Riptide. So we have 2 drones next to a Riptide that's behind -1 to hit and has a 3-up invul. So it makes them very, very difficult for your opponent to kill. If they shoot at them, they're wasting shots. Another thing I use a lot is obscure. You have to get behind obscure. If you have soft things like the stealth suits or breachers, if I move them up to the center of the board because I'm trying to get over there, I'm putting them behind something that my opponent can't shoot me. Yeah, he might be able to charge me if he moved up, but he is not going to be able to shoot me. And when I do that, like example, I'll try to keep my Riptide here so that if he does try to charge him and I have line of sight with the Riptide is going to, get to do for the greater good. If they decide they want to charge the Riptide, if they're coming in from this way or this way, they have to go around the woods or take a -2 to travel through the woods. A lot of people don't want to take the -2 to charge. So they'll try to go around or they'll charge something else. If they charge something else, that's perfect because I really don't want the Riptide locked in combat. If I did think my opponent was going to come this way, I'm placing drones here so that if they do want to charge, they're getting the drones. They're not getting the Riptide.
Also, then you're funneling them into the smaller areas, so they're going to get less units in, especially with, like Custodes have the bigger base, so you're actually forcing them to kind of stop themselves by having those little barriers and things. It's working the terrain to the best of your advantage.
Yep. And then I do that a lot. Everybody hates me.
Oh,
for
yeah.
it.
So, Joe Punch, just one last thing, because
Yeah.
we're at about 20 minutes before we go. One last thing that I was running up against you was, okay, so this is a unit of Death Guard Plague Marines. There's 5 of them, right?
Yeah.
Now, explain the importance of when you have a one model unit, when you're drawing line of sight to it, and how you can use terrain to your future, because you did that to me all last game.
Yep. So one thing I find that a lot of people are misunderstanding about dense cover is a lot of people are, so let's say he's not touching the cover, right? So he's like this. So if I'm here, I have to, well, I'm in it, so I'm not taking a penalty. But if I'm not in the woods, I'm taking a penalty. So if I'm shooting through, even though my base from here to there can see that model, it's still drawing a line of sight over the terrain. So what you always want to do is make sure you stay behind the woods so they take -1 to hit, but move your model out to where any part of your base can see one of their models. It only has to see one. If I can see one model without
base.
or one base, if I can see one base without traveling over terrain, then you do not take a -1 for the penalty. I don't know if this will show up on camera.
Oh.
The laser. Does it show up?
Let's see. No.
No.
Let's see if we go to the bigger screen. Hold on. Let's
Okay.
let's switch to the bigger
But
screen.
pretty much, so I got this light just recently.
That's
I just got it
awesome,
the other
by the way.
day.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that we never have to be like,
Let's
oh,
see.
you know,
Go
with
for it again.
we never have to measure with a ruler. 'cause
Nah,
we
it
just,
kind of doesn't.
so you probably can't see it, but it's a laser that just shows a line. And so like, I can draw line of sight to every part of that model's base.
Which means you don't get the -1, right?
Which means I do
But
not
he
get
gets a
-1.
-1 shooting at your guy because it's
Yep.
stupid tail with one model.
Yep. So if he shot at me, he has to take a -1.
Okay. Well, do you have any closing thoughts, Joe Maverick, on your towel? Because I just want to don't go too long because we're trying to keep it condensed.
Just adapt to the game. Find models that you love to play with, and build a list around those models. And when you're building around those models, you're also building around what secondaries you want to take. You have to build around the secondaries because the game's not very nice to us for secondaries, and if you're taking things that go against what secondaries you're getting, you're not going to have very high scoring games. So definitely always tailor your list to objectives and or not objectives, but secondaries, and what models you like to bring.
Maverick's methodology.
Or-
Love your army and
Thank
play
you.
its strengths. That's what you do.
Yep.
At 6:30, we will be kicking off with Maverick's towel against the nice guy. See, spin around, show them the back of the shirts, guys. Spin around, show them the back.
Yep.
See, we got them some shirts. So, and they're going to be doing this urban battle here. So,
Yep.
let's see if Maverick can use his methodologies.
Yeah. We'll see.